The silence of the empty office building at 2 a.m. was broken not by the usual hum of fluorescent lights or the distant rumble of late-night traffic, but by the haunting melody of a violin that had seen better days. Each note seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 untold stories, floating through the marble lobby like prayers whispered in the dark. Marcus Williams pressed the worn bow against the strings with calloused fingers that had spent the last 8 years pushing mops and emptying trash cans. His janitor's uniform hung loose on his thin frame, the name tag slightly crooked after another 12-hour shift. But in this moment, with the violin cradled against his shoulder, he wasn't just the night custodian everyone barely noticed. He was still the man who once played first chair in the Cleveland Orchestra, before life took an unexpected turn. The violin itself was a testament to resilience. 3 of its strings were mismatched, the varnish had worn thin in places, and a small crack ran along the back where his 6-year-old daughter Emma had accidentally knocked it off the kitchen table last month. He couldn't afford to have it properly repaired, but it still sang, maybe not with the pristine clarity it once had, but with something deeper, something real. Marcus had discovered this late-night ritual 6 months ago, when the weight of his double life became too heavy to carry in silence. By day, he was just another invisible worker in the bustling downtown office complex. By night, after Emma was asleep and the babysitter had gone home, he would return to the one place where the acoustics reminded him of who he used to be. Tonight felt different, though. The eviction notice tucked in his back pocket seemed to pulse with each bowstroke. 3 months behind on rent, despite working 16-hour days between his janitorial job and weekend gigs at weddings and bar mitzvahs. Emma's cough had gotten worse, and the free clinic could only do so much without insurance. The violin was the last remnant of his former life that he hadn't sold, and even that was being tested by desperation. As he transitioned into Bach's Air on the G string, Marcus closed his eyes and let muscle memory guide his fingers. This piece had been Emma's lullaby when she was a baby, back when her mother Sarah was still alive, back when they lived in a house with a music room and dinner parties where he'd play for guests who appreciated the subtle complexities of classical composition. The memories threatened to overwhelm him. Sarah's laugh, the way she danced in the kitchen while he practiced, her final words in the hospital about making sure Emma always had music in her life. That promise had kept him going through the grief, through the medical bills that consumed their savings, through the humbling transition from concert halls to commercial buildings. He was so lost in the music that he didn't notice the figure standing in the shadows near the entrance until a soft sob broke through his concentration. Marcus's brow froze mid-note as he spotted an elderly woman in an elegant coat, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Please," she whispered, raising a trembling hand. "Don't stop. It's been so long since I've heard music played with such pain and beauty." Marcus lowered his instrument, embarrassment flooding his cheeks. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone was here. I can leave your number." Her voice was firm despite the tears. "I'm Helen Rosenberg. I write for the Times. I was working late upstairs, and I heard." She struggled for words. "Where did you train?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Gilead," he said quietly. "Cleveland Orchestra. Second chair, then first." But that was another life. Helena stepped closer, her keen eyes taking in his uniform, his worn instrument, the exhaustion etched in every line of his face. "And now I keep buildings clean so my daughter has a roof over her head." The words came out harder than he intended. "Music doesn't pay the bills, Miss Rosenberg." "Show me your hands," she said suddenly. Confused, Marcus set down his violin and extended his hands. Helena examined them with the intensity of a detective studying evidence. Here the calluses from years of string work overlaid with newer ones from mop handles and cleaning supplies. the careful way he held his fingers despite their roughness. "These are the hands of someone who has never stopped being a musician," she said softly. "They've just learned to survive." Over the next hour, Marcus found himself telling this stranger his story of Sarah's death, the medical bills, Emma's asthma, the constant juggling act between providing and dreaming. Helena listened without judgment, occasionally asking gentle questions that drew out details he hadn't shared with anyone. "Play something else," she requested when he finished. "Play something for Emma." Marcus picked up his violin again, and this time he played a piece he'd written himself, a simple melody that captured the sound of his daughter's giggle, her wonder at butterflies in the park, her sleepy questions about why mommy had to go to heaven. It wasn't technically complex, but it was honest in a way that concert hall performances rarely allowed. When the last note faded, Helena was quiet for a long moment. "I want to write about you," she said finally. "About this. Would you let me?" Marcus shook his head. "I don't need pity." "This isn't about pity," Helena replied firmly. "This is about the fact that true artistry isn't diminished by circumstances. It's refined by them. Your music tonight, it had something that most concert performances lack. It had life." 3 weeks later, Helena's article appeared on the front page of the arts section. "The Midnight Symphony: How One Father's Love Created the Most Moving Concert of the Year." The piece described not just Marcus's playing, but the larger story of artists forced to abandon their callings, of the invisible people who clean our buildings and serve our coffee while carrying entire universes of talent within them. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The Cleveland Orchestra reached out, offering Marcus a position and health insurance. A local violin shop donated a professional instrument. Strangers sent money, offers of help, and most importantly, invitations to play. But perhaps the most meaningful response came from Emma herself, who woke up the morning the article was published to find her father crying over his laptop. "Daddy, why are you sad?" she asked, climbing onto his lap. "I'm not sad, baby girl," Marcus whispered, holding her tight. I'm just grateful." Music found us again. 6 months later, Marcus played his first concert with the Cleveland Orchestra in 8 years. In the front row sat Emma, wearing a little black dress that Helena had bought for the occasion, clapping with the enthusiasm only a 7-year-old could muster. Next to her, Helena dabbed at her eyes, remembering that night in the lobby when she witnessed the most honest performance of her 40-year career. As Marcus drew his bow across the strings of his new violin, he thought about the old one, now retired but displayed proudly in their new apartment. It had taught him that sometimes things need to break a little to reveal their true beauty, that the most powerful music often comes from the spaces between the notes, so the silence is filled with hope, love, and the unshakable belief that no dream is ever truly lost, only waiting for the right moment to sing again. The standing ovation that night lasted 7 minutes, but Marcus was already thinking about tomorrow's lunch with Emma, about helping her with homework, about the ordinary magic of a life rebuilt one note at a time. In the end, that was the most beautiful music of all.